So this is about the time that I dated a sociopath. So I met this guy that we'll call Aaron at my best friend's birthday party. He was super attractive, but honestly, I was flirting with his friend the whole night, which looking back on it, I think is what got his attention. By the end of the night, he went out of his way to talk to me, and I noticed just how absolutely charming he was, and I was shocked that he was single. So he asked for my number, and I of course gave it to him. And for our first date, we ended up going hiking. PSA for your safety, I do not recommend this for a first date. While everything seemed fine originally, this is where the conversation got weird. He talked to me about how he was attracted to me because I was going into the mental health field. He feels like no one can figure him out. He struggled with relationships for years because he continually puts on masks for people, but they can only last for so long before they come off and a breakup occurs and the other person sees his true self. But he says that this is why he's so good at sales. He's able to be whoever he wants to be for each person. He customizes it. Never once did he talk about his own emotions regarding situations, just his protection of his own reputation, as if he sees people as a way to get something or protect something. Soon I was contacted by a family member. Stay tuned for part 2. Hey guys, so welcome to part 2 of me dating a sociopath. So his cousin reached out to say that this is what he does to girls. He stays in someone's life for a little bit, absolutely destroys it, and then pieces out. The person that he dated before me was a mom of 2 kids. He walked into her life, pretended to be a father figure, and then once he couldn't hold that mask for too long, he left. He only lasted like 3 months. Of course, me being absolutely stupid, I decided to continue dating this person. Part of it was because I was attracted to them, and another part was just pure fascination. He always told me what I wanted to hear. Looking back on it, I know that I was just another person that he customized whatever he had to say to. But not only did he win me over, he went out of his way to impress every single person in my life so that he would for sure have an end. And then on my birthday of last year, he called me to tell me he was too busy to date me. And I was beyond upset with myself for seeing so many red flags and still continuing. And that's when one of his best guy friends reached out to me, saying that he had been dating my best friend's little sister the entire time, talking to her and going on dates with her, having her over right after me, completely two-timing. I cut him off and haven't heard from him in a year. Until last week. Stay tuned and follow me on Instagram. I guess here's part 3 of me dating a sociopath with receipts. So I went out downtown with my boyfriend Jeremy and a few of our friends. Went to a few bars and a couple clubs and had a great time, came home, was getting ready for bed, and then I got a text on my Snapchat. Y'all know the feeling of seeing someone's name pop up on your phone that you haven't seen as a notification for over a year. It's weird. Essentially, he was apologizing about a year ago, saying that he feels like he hasn't wronged someone as much as he's wronged me, but that he saw me tonight and essentially followed me to each place that we went and talked to my friends about me and how beautiful I looked, even though he is still with my friend's little sister. We'll call her Ava. But do y'all see how creepy that is? Like, I never saw him. Like, I don't know what's wrong with my monitor, but then he called me. I'm pretty sure he thought that I wasn't going to be around my boyfriend anymore. That's why he waited. But I put him on speaker so my boyfriend could listen too. And he just went on, and I knew I was going to have to let his girlfriend know. So I called my friend and let her know what happened. She said she was going to tell her sister tonight. And that night she said Ava and her wanted to do a group FaceTime. This story basically turns into Catch a Cheater. Stay tuned and follow me on Instagram for more content. Okay, here's part 4 to dating a sociopath. So I got on the phone with my best friend and Ava said, and I quote, that Aaron let her know about the phone call and the text messages, but said it was because my boyfriend and I were following him around the entire night. What? She already knew that it was sus, and she had been having a gut intuitive feeling that the relationship wasn't okay for the past few weeks. So me showing her the message kind of just confirmed her feelings, and she was going to confront him on it and give him a chance to explain himself. Well, this man decides to contact me again. I immediately text Ava and send her the messages, and he asked to call me a second time. This is when we decide to record the phone call. If you guys want, I can put in a few of the clips just so you can see how this man finesses and charms. But during this phone call, he essentially said that the text messages between me and him made him come to the conclusion that his relationship with Ava was not at its best and he was going to meet with her to break up with her, but that they were obviously still going to be friends, and he was only concerned about his reputation and his standing with their family. This makes me wonder what he's even saying to other girls, since he's saying this with someone that's so close to them. Stay tuned for the update and add me on Instagram.
Story time about how this girl and her boyfriend beat me up. So a little background information, I was in 11th grade and I was 17 years old. And in the summer, my friend and I went to go and watch fireworks for the 4th of July at this park. And most of the people there went to a completely different school. But we ended up meeting this group of guys, and I was really vibing with the one guy who was there. He was super cute, super chill, and we got along great. And I just want to put this out there. I did not think to ask that he had a girlfriend because he was being super flirtatious and just really wasn't acting like he had a girlfriend. I literally just hate how we have to ask people if they're in relationships now because they don't want to be honest or loyal. And then we look like the bad guys because they were dishonest. Anyway, so him and I start to hang out a lot, and he really likes me. I really like him. And we went to this football game at his school, and we ended up doing the nasty. After that, I'm in the bleachers with my friends, and one of my friends tells me, yeah, he has a girlfriend. So she couldn't have told me this before we did the nasty. Anyways, like for part 2. Part 2 about how this guy and his girlfriend literally beat me up. So like I said, him and I did the nasty at the football game, and then I go onto the bleachers with my friends, and she tells me that he has a girlfriend. But I'm not gonna lie, at this point, we had already been talking for 2 months, and I really didn't care because I liked him and I wasn't just gonna turn my feelings off. First of all, I do not owe that girl any loyalty. Number two, we were already intimate with each other, so I don't know what could make this situation worse than it already was. I mean, I did confront him about it, and he told me that he was gonna break up with her for me. So I believed him. I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna wait for him to break it off with her, and I'm still gonna talk to him. So eventually, he literally made me wait for like 2 more months. So what did I do? I told his girlfriend everything. I'm not gonna lie, it's not even that I wanted to be a good person. It was literally just to spite him. It's like, yeah, your man wants to be with me. He don't want you. This is the text messages of him telling me that he was gonna break up with you. That day, he called me and he was like, hey, do you want to hang out? And I was shocked that he did not bring up anything that I said to his girlfriend. Like for part 3. Part 3 about how this girl and her boyfriend literally beat me up. So like I said, I told his girlfriend everything about how he didn't want her. I sent her the receipts and everything. And then she has the audacity to tell me I'm disgusting, I'm this, I'm that, saying that I'm gross for even doing anything with him. I should have known that he had a girlfriend. I should have told him off. Like, sis, your man did not mention you once. He didn't even mention you as an ex-girlfriend, so put the blame on him, not me. So later that day, he invites me over, and I am shook because I at least thought that he was going to bring it up and be like, why did you text my girlfriend? So I thought that maybe she was one of those girls where she's like, OMG, my man is never wrong. I'm not even going to confront him because I don't want him to break up with me, and it just wasn't his fault. So fast forward, I get to his house. I usually just walk in because I've been over there so many times. Well, as soon as I walk in the door, him and his girlfriend start wailing on me. I ended up with a few broken ribs, but I also ended up pregnant with his child. His family thinks that he should be with me since I'm having his kid. She decided to stay with him, so she comes to every prenatal appointment. Storytime about why my sister is probably worse than yours. So a little background information, my sister and I were both 16 and in our sophomore year of high school. And yes, my sister and I were twins, but we were the complete opposite. She was a girly girl and I was a tomboy. But the summer before our sophomore year, we both got grounded because we were driving my dad's car without our license and we wrecked it. So we ended up spending all summer together, which was very unusual because it was like her and I were acquaintances living in the same house. Well, over that summer, we got super close and she ended up turning me into a girly girl. She taught me how to take care of my skin, do my hair, do my makeup, and how to dress. Now, mind you, once we got into high school, she never spoke to me because I wasn't a part of the little clique that she was in. So she was like, yay, you can finally hang out with my friends and I'm super excited. So school starts, I end up becoming friends with all of her friends, and my sister's really good friends with this one boy. But she had always said that she never liked him like that. So she introduced us, him and I started talking, and we both ended up liking each other. Like for part 2. Part 2 about why my sister is probably worse than yours. So like I said, my sister and I start school, I become friends with her friends, and she introduces me to this guy that she's been best friends with for a while. Him and I end up talking, I really like him, he really likes me, and my sister would always hype me up. She would be like, oh my god, you should get with him, he's such a nice guy, you guys would look so great together. So the one night he asked me if I wanted to go on a date with him, and of course I said yes, so I ran to my sister's room, I was so excited to tell her. So I knock on her door, I go in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, guess what? She's like, what? I'm like, he asked me out on a date, and she just sits there and stares at me. And when I ask her what's wrong, she's like, oh my god, you knew that I liked him. You're such a bad sister. I would have never done this to you. So then I started to feel bad, but then I didn't because I remembered how she used to hype me up. So the next day, a few hours before my date, she comes in my room. She's like, hey, I'm really sorry about how I acted yesterday. I would love to help you get ready for your date if you'll let me. I feel so bad. And we're sisters, so of course I get over it, and I tell her yes, I want her to help me, like for part 3. Part 3 about why my sister is probably worse than yours. So like I said, she asked me if I want help getting ready. I say yes. And my family's super Italian, so we have thick, dark hair that grows in everywhere. Like I literally have a unibrow, and the peach fuzz that's above my lips looks like a mustache. So my sister's like, hey, do you want me to wax your face? And I say yes. And she definitely wasn't over the situation, and she wanted me to be in pain because I begged her to use this IPL device on me called U-Like, which was basically at-home laser hair removal, but safer, and it did not hurt at all. So my sister hasn't had to deal with hair in literally months. So I begged her to use U-Like on me, and she's like, no, either you can let me wax you or you're going on this date with a mustache. So of course I gave in to her waxing my face. We go grab my mom's wax, which has probably been sitting in her cupboard for literally 6 years. My sister puts it in the microwave, and then I lay down on the kitchen table and she goes to put the wax on me. I already knew this was going to be painful. As soon as the wax touched my skin, I literally started screaming. And she was like, stop being a baby, and she put more on me. I knocked the container over, it gets all over me. When I get to the hospital, I figure out that I have 3rd-degree burns, and my sister did it on purpose.
Storytime about how I had to get a restraining order against my creepy neighbor. I found a good deal on a rental and moved into a new neighborhood. It seemed like a decent area and I was excited for a fresh start. My friend was helping me move my stuff into my new house when my neighbor noticed and came over to welcome me. He seemed nice, and he even offered to help us unload the heavy furniture, which I accepted. A couple nights later, someone rang my doorbell and it was him. He brought me a plate of cookies and welcomed me to the neighborhood again. I thought he was just friendly and trying to be nice, but he kept doing things for me. Whenever he mowed his lawn, he would come over and mow mine as well without asking. I told him he didn't have to do that, but he insisted and said it wasn't any trouble. He brought me over food every few nights and always said he made extra and wanted to share. I wanted him to stop, so I told him that I was going on a strict diet and politely declined the next time he tried it. At this point, I could tell he was being overly friendly and it started getting weird. One morning, I came outside and he was washing my car. I asked him what he was doing and he replied that he just finished washing his and figured he'd do mine as well. I told him I appreciate it, but I didn't want my car washed and he shouldn't have done it without my permission. Unfortunately, things kept getting weirder from here. Part 2 of why I had to get a restraining order against my creepy neighbor. My new neighbor kept doing unwanted favors for me. Whenever I asked him to stop, he would just ignore me and do it anyway. It got creepy when I got a package in the mail that I didn't order. It was a new keyboard that I was talking about getting myself for Christmas in my live stream on Twitch a few nights prior. No one on my Twitch stream had my address. Upon further inspection, there was a note inside the box that said, "Here's that new keyboard you were talking about, from your neighbor Jim." I never told Jim about my Twitch account, and I had no clue he watched it, which led me to believe he'd been looking me up online. I was super creeped out at this point and was going to tell him to leave me alone for good the next time I saw him. The last straw was when I came home from work and this man was hanging up Christmas lights on my house for the holidays. I was shocked. I got out of the car and immediately went off on him. I threatened to call the police and get a restraining order on him if he didn't leave me alone. Apparently, he didn't get the message because he sent me flowers with an apology card the next day and tried to contact me on 3 social media platforms. I contacted the police when he wouldn't stop and filed for a civil harassment restraining order. After this, Jim stopped, but I still ended up moving a couple months later to get away from him. This is why you need a security system for your house. A few years ago, I was renting a house in Northern California. The neighborhood was just outside of the suburbs. It seemed like the perfect balance of having space and having nice neighbors close enough not to feel isolated. The area had no streetlights, so it was very dark at night, but it didn't bother me. I got home from work one evening in midwinter. It was a cloudy night, so pulling up, I only saw what my headlights and porch light illuminated. When I got out of my car, I caught a whiff of cigarette smoke. That was odd as I had never smelled that before around my house, but I didn't see anyone nearby, so I ignored it and went inside. I had just gotten off a shift with a few hours of overtime and I was exhausted. It wasn't even 7 yet, but I decided to call it an early night. I woke up sometime later when I heard a noise inside of my house. I wasn't immediately worried because my best friend had a spare key and would sometimes come over. However, he'd always text me and let me know, but when I checked my phone, there were no messages. I called out my friend's name. There were a few seconds of silence before I heard someone stomping as they ran through the bottom floor. I leapt out of bed and ran to the closet. They were already up the stairs by the time I opened the door and stepped inside. I was terrified. That's when I heard them thunder down my hallway. Part 2, why you need a security system for your house. The house had 2 bedrooms on either hallway and a bathroom. The bedroom doors were closed, but the bathroom door was creaked open. I was so lucky in that moment because he sprinted to the bathroom. That gave me just enough time to open the attic access in my closet and pull myself up. As I lifted myself, I heard the person run towards my room. I had just pulled my feet inside when my bedroom door burst open. He walked in and stopped. When he didn't see me, he went and checked the other room, then came back and turned on the light. A moment later, he ripped open my closet door. After a few seconds, he stepped away and I heard a loud crash come from my room, followed by a scream of frustration and anger. Then he went downstairs. I had left my phone when I ran for the closet and wasn't sure I could climb down without him hearing. After some time, the noises stopped. I counted to 1,000, then climbed down to call the police. My bed had been flipped, furniture knocked over, and all my things destroyed. The only thing missing was a knife from my kitchen. The police found that the side door had been forced open by a crowbar. They also found cigarette butts and an empty tube used for drugs. They think he had been watching the house for a while. I installed some security on the house after this. I can't imagine what would have happened if he had come to my room first.
Hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about McCamey Manor. If anyone is as fascinated as I am with scary things, you've probably looked up haunted places to go to, or even maybe extreme haunts. But this haunted house attraction is one of the scariest, most extreme that you can ever go to and can last up to 8 hours. You have to sign a liability waiver up to 40 pages before you go. It takes you about 5 hours to get through the entire contract. It operates year-round and is operated by Russ McCamey. This was featured on a Netflix documentary, which is what originally piqued my interest. When you go to sign up, there's several areas on their website telling you that you do not want to do this and you do not want to sign up for this. Before you go, you not only have to do a physical, but also a psych evaluation. So you have to be okayed by a therapist to even get in. You then have to watch And Then They Were None on YouTube, which is essentially 2 hours of people being tortured at the manor and not making it through. That's the thing, Russ has won every single time. While there is a $20,000 prize at the end, no one has won. It's impossible. So what exactly do they do? Follow, share, and add me on Instagram for part 2. Hey guys, and welcome back for part 2 of McCamey Manor. So let's break down exactly what is included in this contract. While there is now a safe word, which wasn't included before, it is stated that you may come in contact with carbon monoxide poisoning. There is no quitting unless serious physical or psychological injury is present. Various fluids such as grease and theatrical blood may be placed in the participant's mouth, and it's the participant's responsibility not to swallow. Also, being scared and having a panic attack does not count as a serious injury. Participants may have to be involved in a height stunt that includes walking a plank 25 feet above the ground without a safety net, saying that you will come into contact with live poisonous animals and not to agitate them, and you will be submerged under 60 feet of water. And it's the participant's responsibility to make it back up to the surface. This is literally just to name a few. Russ McCamey is literally running a real-life Saw. And not to mention, this is entirely free with donations accepted. Considering all of the torture and the actors involved in this, where is all that money coming from? And who exactly is Russ McCamey? Follow, share, and add me on Instagram for part 3. Hey guys, and welcome to part 3 of McCamey Manor. Russ McCamey said that he had spent his entire life savings onto McCamey Manor, over $500,000. Diving deeper into his disclosure, it states that you will be on TV during this for different places around the world. This is considered a red room. People will actually bet money and suggest things that happen next to you. So this is probably where most of his income is coming from. He will ignore people's safe words, pull out fingernails, teeth, drown, bury people alive, and then will act totally fine and be a wedding DJ the next second, which is his other job. Many people believe him to be a psychopath. This place has had many additional allegations that we won't even get into with this video, but there are so many people that have left with PTSD and have had to go through years and years of therapy after their experience. So what are your guys' thoughts on this? Please comment, and follow, share, and add me on Instagram if you want to see more of these videos. Have you ever had to separate yourself from a toxic friend? A while back, I was a hardcore gamer and I really wanted some other girls to bond with. So I joined this online group that was all females. It was fantastic. And I ended up meeting a girl in there that I became almost instantly best friends with. We'll call her Anna. We bonded so well online, and one day she ended up posting that she was close to my area and was wondering if anyone was around there to hang out. I immediately said yes. For the next several months, we continued to bond and got closer and closer. Eventually, her boyfriend actually ended up proposing to her, so she was going to have a wedding. She asked me to be her matron of honor, and I obviously said yes. Everything was smooth sailing until her wedding week. That is when all the drama went down. She was a total bridezilla, nothing could ever be done right, and I was pretty much just done with her after this. So I bit my tongue, got through it, and slowly started separating myself from her afterwards. I thought all the drama was over until she decided to go after my husband. Follow, share, and add me on Instagram for part 2. Hey guys, and welcome to part 2 of Toxic Best Friend. First, I want to show you guys these really cute scrunchies by Peachy Crafting. They are so fun and come in so many colors. If you guys like supporting high quality small businesses, I will link her TikTok below. So on my 25th birthday, my best friend Michelle and her husband decided to come over and help my husband and I with stuff around the house. But then Anna contacted me and offered to help too. And I just thought, why not? It had been a while since her wedding and maybe she had kind of gotten over herself. She came over and everything was going fantastic. I honestly thought it was really kind of her to help. And then afterwards, we got some food and poured some drinks. I thought everything was going fine until she took my best friend aside when I left the room. Anna told Michelle that she was trying to feel up my husband, if you know what I mean. And she kept trying to get him more drunk. Obviously, if you tell my best friend, she's gonna tell me. My husband was not falling for it, and when things weren't going her way, she just kept trying to cuddle him. After this, I blocked her on absolutely everything, but she kept making other people reach out to me and ask why I blocked her. Moral of the story, please be careful who you let into your life. Add me on Insta for more content. How can you convince a group of 900 people to take their own lives? This is the story of Jonestown. Jim Jones opened his first church in the mid-1950s in Indianapolis. He was extremely progressive for the 50s and was able to attract a large amount of minorities to his church. He wanted people from all races and all cultural backgrounds to be brought together. Due to his growing popularity, he opened up a people temple in both LA and San Francisco. While the church covered itself in humanitarian causes, Jim Jones himself was less than humane. He would humiliate, blackmail, and beat his followers. He convinced many of them to sign over their possessions and homes to his church. He brainwashed many of the minority members of his church to think that if they left, the government would round them up and send them to concentration camps. After the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. and JFK, Jim Jones thought he'd be next. So Jim and 90 other of his members packed up and moved to Guyana. This is the foundation where something more horrible began. Follow, share, and add me on Instagram for part 2. Hey guys, and welcome back for part 2 of Jonestown. Once Jim and his other followers got to Guyana, they set up Jonestown. Compound took about 3 to 4 years to build. During this, they sent videos and letters back to the US and back to other family members. This group of 90 ended up growing to 500 fast, and soon it reached about 900. Many thought Jim was a god because he could heal the sick and read minds. However, back in the US, a writing piece actually came out investigating some of the rumors around Jonestown. While Jonestown was presenting itself as a socialist utopia, many of their family members back at home claimed that they were being held against their will and some were being subjected to physical and psychological abuse. That is when Congressman Leo Ryan traveled to Guyana to inspect. When he got there, he was welcomed with dancing and happy members. Everyone was excited to be there and he gave a positive speech. However, later that night, he started to be slipped notes from the members. Many of these notes stated that they couldn't leave and needed help getting out of Jonestown. Ryan went to confront Jim, and this is when things turned for the worst. What happened next is straight out of a horror film. Follow, share, and add me on Instagram for part 3. Hey guys, and welcome to part 3 of Jonestown. So during the confrontation with Jim, he claimed that anyone could leave anytime they wanted to. So the next day, Ryan, his camera crew, and a few of the people that wanted to leave Jonestown packed up in the truck to go. Once they hit the airstrip to leave, members of Jonestown ended up opening fire on them, killing the congressman, 3 other members of the press, and wounding 11 people. Knowing that he was obviously going to get in trouble for this, Jim Jones took action. He created a Kool-Aid laced with cyanide. He convinced the members of Jonestown that they were all at fault and that the CIA was going to get them. Everyone had to drink the Kool-Aid. This is where the saying comes from, by the way. One woman even stood up saying that this was not the answer and that she wanted to take her kids and leave. She was immediately shot, and that's when everyone knew that they didn't have a choice. First, it was given to the babies and kids through syringes, and then the adults drank the Kool-Aid. Total of 909 deaths happened that day. Only 5 people escaped into the jungle. Jim Jones then took his own life. This really highlights the danger of people creating their own religions. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and follow and add me on Instagram for more content.
Crime Fanatic Friday, the Tylenol murders of 1982. On the morning of September 29th, 1982, a young 12-year-old girl named Mary Kellerman had a sore throat and a runny nose. She told her parents of her symptoms, who then gave her 1 extra strength Tylenol capsule. They had no clue that the capsule was laced with potassium cyanide, which is highly poisonous. By 7 a.m. the next morning, Mary was dead. That same day, a 27-year-old postal worker named Adam Janus died of what was initially thought to be a massive heart attack. However, this also turned out to be cyanide poisoning. His brother and sister-in-law both took Tylenol capsules from the same bottle Adam used earlier that day. They also died within a couple days. Over the next few days, 3 more strange deaths occurred in Chicago and Illinois. They all had one thing in common. They took Tylenol shortly before they died. In October, investigators made a connection between the poisonings and Tylenol. The gelatin-based capsules were popular because they were slick and easy to swallow, but this also made them easy to be tampered with. The manufacturers of Tylenol immediately took to the media, issuing mass warnings and recalling more than 31 million bottles. As time passed, the case continued to confuse police, the drug manufacturer, and the public. Crime Fanatic Friday, Part 2, the Tylenol murders of 1982. The manufacturers of Tylenol, Johnson & Johnson, put out a reward for anyone with information about these random murders. Tainted capsules were discovered in early October in stores, but luckily they hadn't been sold or consumed. The police gathered that someone had taken bottles off of the shelves of their local stores, laced them with poison, and then returned them to the shelves to be purchased by unknowing victims. Unfortunately, the perpetrators of these murders have never been found. Before this crisis, Tylenol controlled over 35% of the pain reliever market. Within a few weeks of the murders, it dropped to 8%. Johnson & Johnson developed a new tablet that was just coated in that slick gelatin. They also introduced a tamper-proof packaging that made it obvious if they had been opened. They invested $100 million, which in a year rebounded sales and secured their spot for the nation's favorite pain reliever. In 1983, Congress passed the Tylenol bill, which made it a federal offense to tamper with consumer products. Other manufacturers also made products that were tamper-proof after this disaster. The tragedies that occurred can never be reversed, but they inspired a series of moves that made over-the-counter medications safer. Storytime about how I found out my boyfriend was married. I had just moved to a new state and decided to download Bumble to meet new people. One day, I matched with this great guy named Alex. He had a good job, his own house, never married, and no kids. We lived in the same town and we started spending a lot of time together. However, I noticed that Alex started doing some weird things. He started coming over unannounced. Before he left, he would always check to make sure that the doors and windows were locked, and when I wasn't with him, he was always blowing up my phone constantly asking what I was doing. A few months into our relationship, he introduced me to his family and I introduced him to mine. It also turned out that we had a ton of mutual friends. He knew my new best friend Laura and her husband from the gym. When we made the connection, he made it clear that he didn't want me being friends with her anymore. Anytime I would bring her up in conversation, he would get agitated. Laura and I were both teachers at the same school. One afternoon, she came storming into my classroom. She told me that she had just had a girls' night with the girls from the gym. They were all showing pictures of their wedding since one of the girls recently got engaged. That's when she noticed that my boyfriend was in pictures with another woman. It turns out he was the husband of one of the girls that she was having dinner with. Part 2 of how I found out my boyfriend was married. When my best friend showed me the pictures of my boyfriend and his wife, I was livid. I saw red and immediately texted him telling him to come over to my house to talk. He ended up calling me on the way home from work but refused to come over to my house until I told him what I wanted to talk about. When I told him, he automatically started blaming my best friend and her husband for telling his business, saying it wasn't theirs to tell. I felt so angry and betrayed, but most of all, I felt stupid for not knowing. I told him it was over and that I was done with him. I didn't hear from him again after that. He moved away and no one at the gym had seen him either. A few months after everything happened, his wife posted on Facebook saying that she was getting a divorce. It turns out that he had beaten her up so badly that she ended up in the hospital. This abuse had apparently been going on for months. I felt that it was a blessing in disguise that I had gotten out of that relationship. Seeing how controlling he was within just a few months of dating, who knows what would have happened if I didn't find out and kept dating him. Luckily, I haven't seen or heard of him since 2018 and I hope that I never do. Storytime about how I had to choose between my family and the love of my life. I come from a pretty well-off family. Growing up, I never had to worry about anything because it was always taken care of by my parents. They were pretty religious and we would attend church every week. From a young age, I knew that I was attracted to girls. I also knew that my parents wouldn't accept it, so I buried my feelings deep. Luckily, I was never tempted because I never met anyone that I had feelings for. Fast forward to my senior year of high school. I was on the volleyball team and a new girl named Juliet had transferred to our school and joined the team. We quickly became friends, but there was always a lingering connection between us. I had easily developed a crush on her, but I knew that I couldn't act on it. During spring break, we went to a party and liquid courage led me to confessing my feelings for her. When I told her everything, she kissed me and I felt butterflies fluttering in my stomach. We secretly started dating after this and only my older sister and best friend knew about it. However, the more time I spent with Juliet, the more I knew that she was the one. One night, I finally built up the courage to tell my parents. Unfortunately, the reaction was worse than I expected. They yelled, cried, and told me they'd never accept it. Then they told me they would cut me off and kick me out if I kept seeing her. I was scared and didn't know what to do. Part 2 of how I had to choose between my family and the love of my life. After my parents gave me the ultimatum, I was terrified. The next day after school, I met up with Juliet with the intention of breaking things off. When I told her what happened, she comforted me and told me that it was okay. She said she understood it was an impossible choice and wouldn't blame me for choosing my family. She just wanted me to be happy and do what was best for me. Juliet loved me enough to let me go, even though I knew it was killing her. This was the deciding factor for me. As much as my parents loved me, they didn't accept me for who I am, but Juliet always had. While my parents were at work, we went to my house and packed my things. I called my older sister and she took me in with open arms. I cried to her for a while because I knew that I would never speak to my parents again. A few years later, my sister was getting married and she wanted me to be her maid of honor. Juliet and I were still together and happier than ever. I knew that my family was going to be at the wedding, but I didn't care what they thought anymore. I walked in hand with Juliet and saw my parents' face drop at our entrance. The rest of the family made eyes as well, but we ignored them and enjoyed our night. A year later, I proposed to Juliet and she said yes. Even though I lost my parents, I don't regret my decision. Eventually, we'll make our own family. This is how I found out my childhood best friend was a ghost. I grew up with a girl named Katie Wells. I lived on a farm and Katie lived with an old woman named Irene in the next house over. Katie and Irene weren't related, but whenever I asked Katie about her, she would just change the subject. It seemed like they never got along because they never talked to each other. Katie seemed really sheltered and I thought it was because Irene wouldn't let her do much. Whenever I would talk about boys or a new celebrity crush I had or even a new popular TV show, she never knew what I was referring to. A while later, my mom ended up quitting her job and working from home, so she didn't take me to Katie's house to have Irene watch me anymore. I remember wanting to go over to see Katie and I asked my mom a few times, but she always said no. I eventually made new friends and me and Katie grew apart. A couple years went by and I started to realize I never saw Katie around anymore. She used to talk about her dad Pat a lot, so I assumed she went to live with him. I saw Irene outside one day and I asked her how Katie was doing and where she'd been. However, she just looked at me like I was crazy. She told me that she had no idea who Katie was and that no one has ever lived with her. I told Irene about how we used to play together at her house and she gave me a weird look and asked me if I was feeling okay. This is when things got strange. Part 2 of how I found out my childhood best friend was a ghost. The more details I told Irene about Katie, the more she looked at me like I was mental. She assured me it was just me and her in the house when my mom would drop me off. I was shocked. I went home and asked my mom about Katie, and she gave me the same confused look Irene just gave me and told me she didn't know what I was talking about. I couldn't believe it. How was I the only one who remembered her? I was starting to think I was going insane. It even crossed my mind that maybe Katie was an imaginary friend that I made up when I was little. However, I vividly remember playing with her every time I went over. I thought about it for days and I couldn't get it out of my head. The mystery kept me up at night and I even dreamt about my old childhood friend. I decided to do some research on Irene's house and my heart sank to my stomach when I realized what happened. I discovered the first person to ever own the house was a man named Patrick Wells back in 1941. I tried to find anything I could on Katie, but nothing came up. I remember Katie talking about her dad Pat when I was younger. It finally made sense how she never knew about any recent events I would bring up and why her and Irene would never communicate. I realized that I was the only one who saw Katie because she wasn't alive. I had been playing with a spirit all that time growing up. Storytime about how my assistant youth pastor groomed me. I grew up in a very religious household. My parents forced me to go to church with them, but when I was 15, they let me choose which church I wanted to go to. Being the rebellious teenager that I was, I decided to go to church with my neighbors who I knew did recreational drugs and didn't take it seriously. After going to this church for a while, I developed a crush on the youth pastor. Even though he was 10 years older than me, I thought he was cute. There were some red flags right off the bat, but I ignored them because I was young and naive. He was 25 years old, lived with his mom, and didn't have a car or a real job. He started getting close to me and would ask for my ADHD medicine. My parents thought I was getting really involved in church, so they never questioned what I was doing or when I got home. He slowly started grooming me, first by becoming Xbox friends and playing games together. He would compliment me all the time and tell me that God wanted us to be together. Then he escalated it by asking me to wear dresses at church so he'd have easy access touching me in inappropriate places. I didn't realize that it wasn't okay, and I thought that we really had a connection. A month before my 16th birthday is when things got serious because he asked me to lie to my parents and go over to his house. Part 2 of how my assistant youth pastor groomed me. I told my parents that I was at choir practice and I went over to his house. His kids were there while he forced me to go all the way. When I started to cry, he reassured me that God wanted this and it was okay. No one else knew about our relationship except my friend, who was also my neighbor. A few weeks later, we were still dating and hanging out. This is when I found out his dad went to jail for touching his little sister. I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Eventually, 2 members of the church started noticing what was going on between us. They told my parents, who then called the police and had him arrested. When news of this came out, everyone at the church shunned me. He was charged with indecency and carnal knowledge of a juvenile. He was only sentenced to a few years before he was released on good behavior, but he still needed to register for the sex offender registry. They couldn't charge him with more because it had been months since it happened and there was no definitive proof. Plus, during that time, I thought I was in love with him and wanted to protect him. However, he was sent back to prison shortly after being released because he violated his parole and didn't register for the sex offenders list. To this day, everyone at the church loves him and hates me for what happened. This is why you should be careful working in food delivery. When the pandemic hit, I lost my job and signed up to work for a food delivery app. I was making good money and the tips were nice too. During the first few months of working, I never had any weird experiences or customers. For the most part, everything was fine. There were times when I was a little scared of dropping off the food because it was in sketchy neighborhoods or it was dark outside, but nothing ever happened. I started feeling confident in my position and I let my guard down. One night, I got a delivery request and the tip was bigger than the total order. When I looked at the details of how to drop it off, I realized why the tip was so big. The instructions asked if I could open the door and bring it inside of the house as they were bedbound and unable to walk to the door. I knew I shouldn't do it. It was super against company policy, but I had an aunt who was bedbound and it hit a soft spot. When I opened the door of the house, I was hit with the most vile stench that's ever hit my nose. I looked around and called out to the customer. It was silent for a few seconds. Suddenly, someone croaked out, "I'm back here, come on down." The voice came from a bedroom down the hallway that was pitch black. As I walked towards the room, my stomach was turning. I entered the room and put the order down, but I didn't see anyone. When I turned around to leave, suddenly a man appeared in front of me. Part 2 of why you should be careful working in food delivery. This man was tall, wore glasses, and was balding. He was also fully functional from what I could tell. In this moment, I realized how badly I had messed up. I was cornered away from the doorway. He thanked me for dropping off his order. I politely replied, "You're welcome," and tried to step around him to leave. He took a step in the same direction at the same exact moment and asked me what I was up to for the rest of the night. My heart was pounding out of my chest, but I quickly replied that I had another order to drop off and that they were waiting, so I had to go. However, he didn't move. Somehow, I mustered up enough courage to step towards him and say, "Excuse me, I really have to go." His hand was on the door and I knew he was either going to let me go or shut it and attack me. He stared at me for a moment, then hesitated and stepped out of the way. I quickly slipped past him and made a beeline for the front door. As I twisted the doorknob, I heard his footsteps running towards me. I swiftly opened the door, slammed it behind me, and sprinted towards my car. I felt the adrenaline rushing through my veins. I looked back to see if he was running after me, but he was just standing in the doorway, watching me run away with a smirk on his face. I never should have gone inside for a delivery and I never will again.
Storytime about why I will never babysit ever again. So a little background information, I was 17 and a senior in high school. And my parents were super annoyed about the fact that I hadn't had a job since I was 14. So their friends just happened to need a babysitter. So they told me that I had to do it. So fast forward, I go over there super early in the morning and the mom had already left for work. And the dad, who we're gonna call Will, he was just about to leave. And before he walked out the door, he told me that there was a list of things that needed to be done before they got home. So their daughter Autumn, who was 5 years old, she was still sleeping. And I was reading through the list and it was just normal stuff like nap time at 2 o'clock, no pop after 7 o'clock, that sort of stuff. And then it had an arrow pointing towards the back. And when I flipped the page over, it said, "By the way, Autumn is scared to bathe by herself, so please get a shower with her." And I was not comfortable with that, so I called my mom and I told her about it, like for part 2. Part 2 about why I will never ever babysit ever again. So like I said, I flipped the page over and it said that their daughter was scared to bathe alone, so I would have to take a shower with her. And I called my mom and I told her about it. And she was like, well, honey, that doesn't sound that weird. Don't you remember when your little brother was scared of the toilet and we would have to take him to the bathroom and stand there with him for 20 minutes while he tried to go to the bathroom? So I was super annoyed that she was even comparing those two situations. Because first of all, that was my little brother. Second of all, this is just freaking weird. So I told her to bring my bathing suit over, and then I did everything on the list. Fast forward, Autumn said that she really liked me, so her parents wanted me to come over and babysit again. So I did, and whenever I was setting up the shower that day, there was a stack of towels sitting on the toilet, and when I picked it up to move it, a camera fell out of the pile of towels as soon as I picked it up, and it was recording. I was really weirded out, but I wanted to show it to my mom. So Part 3 about why I will never ever ever babysit ever again. So like I said, I picked up the stack of towels and a camera that was recording fell out of it. And while I was home later that night, I was waiting for my mom to get home when I got a call from Will. And if you don't remember who that is, that's Autumn's dad. And of course I wasn't going to answer the phone because I was super weirded out and low-key scared. But then he left a voicemail and he was like, hey, so, I know you have the camera and this is kind of awkward, but I'm gonna need it back. I can pay you whatever you want and I would prefer that we don't tell anybody about this. Sometimes I'm just really amazed at how stupid people are because as soon as my mom got home, I showed her the camera and I let her listen to the voicemail. So my mom called over Autumn's mom. So they called the police. And Autumn's mom kept trying to call Will, but his phone was going straight to voicemail. And she was like, yeah, he begged me not to come over here whenever you called. It's been a week since this happened, and Autumn's dad is currently running from the cops. Storytime about why I hate my brother's girlfriend. So a little background information, I was 14 years old and had just started my freshman year of high school, and my brother and his girlfriend were both seniors. And we're gonna call his girlfriend Riley. Now, Riley and my brother started dating in the middle of the summer, and you would think since they just started dating and basically just met each other that I wouldn't know her that well. But literally 2 days after they started dating, she started spending every single day at my house. I'm being serious, like she had a whole duffel bag that had basically her closet in it. But that wasn't the problem. So in the summertime, my parents would plan a lot of family activities, and since they were called family activities, his girlfriend wasn't allowed to go. I mean, I think she would have been allowed to go, but she was also really disrespectful to my mom. So after one of our family days, my parents asked my brother if Riley would be joining us for dinner, and he just ignored them and went up to his room. And my room's right next to his, so I could hear everything. And Riley called him like for part 2. Part 2 about why I hate my brother's girlfriend. So like I said, my room was right next to my brother, so I could literally hear everything. And I guess Riley called him and she was complaining about me. She was like, she's the reason why your mom doesn't like me. I feel like she's jealous of me. She doesn't want us to be together. Which was really weird because I didn't give a fuck about what my brother did. So fast forward, school finally starts, and Riley lived about 20 minutes away from us. So my brother told her that he couldn't go and pick her up for school every day. But obviously I would ride to school with him because we lived together. Anyways, eventually she had a problem with that too. So my brother and I had to start leaving 30 minutes early to get to school so we could pick her up. So the first time that we pick her up, we pull up to her house. And obviously I'm in the front seat and she's just standing there. So my brother rolls down the window and he's like, get in the fucking car, we're gonna be late. And then she literally has the audacity to start arguing with my brother in front of me about why she should get the front seat instead of me. Like for part 3. Part 3 about why I hated my brother's girlfriend. So like I said, when she got in, she started screaming about how she should get the front seat instead of me. So I turn around and I'm like, last time I checked, you've only been here for 2 months. Stay in your fucking lane. And then she starts crying because she's like, oh my god, your sister's so mean to me. Like, I just feel like I should have more respect as his girlfriend. So fast forward to the weekend, my mom said that she needs to have a talk with me. And she's like, honey, I know you may not like your brother's girlfriend, but you have to stop being mean to her. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I've only had one conversation with her in the last week, and that was to tell her to stay in her fucking lane. And then I told her about everything going on, so she calls my brother down to ask him if it's true, and my brother was pretty pissed off at me, but he wouldn't lie. So my mom said that she was not allowed over the house anymore, and that he wasn't allowed to go pick her up from school until I got my license. So that just caused more problems between her and my brother, so he broke up with her. And then she started spreading rumors that she broke up with him because there was something weird going on between him and I. Storytime about why I will never let my sister pet sit for me ever again. So a little background information, I was 18 and it was the summer before my freshman year in college. And it was towards the end of the summer, so I decided that I wanted to take a vacation with a few of my girlfriends before we all went off to the different colleges that we were going to. And I have a lot of pets. I have 4 hamsters, 2 snakes, a tarantula, 2 birds, and 1 fish. So I asked her if she could watch all of them. She said yeah, so I wrote her out a schedule of when they need to be fed. And I wasn't even going to be gone a week, so it would be pretty easy because I already cleaned all their tanks and everything like that. And I wasn't worried at all because I trusted my sister. She had 2 dogs and a cat, so I thought she was going to be fine. I called her the first 2 days. Everything seemed to be going well. And I called her on the 4th day, and she didn't answer the phone. So I called my mom, asked her if she could get a hold of her, and my mom said that she spent the 2 days at her boyfriend's house, like for part 2. Part 2 about why I will never let my sister pet sit for me ever again. So like I said, I called my mom asking if she could get a hold of her, and she said that she spent the last 2 days at her boyfriend's house. And the worst part was, my sister was the only one with a key to my apartment. So my sister calls me the next day and she's like, hey, sorry, like I was at my boyfriend's house. And I was like, who fed the animals? And she was like, well, I just put enough in their cages so that way they would be fine for like 3 days. And she was like, don't worry, I'll sleep over there tonight to make sure they're okay. So I'm like having a fucking panic attack right now. Anyways, so fast forward, I get home early in the morning and my sister's sleeping on the couch, but my sister brought over her animals too. So I wake my sister up and I'm like, hey, like, how are all the animals? She's like, oh, they're fine. And then we walk into the kitchen and the fucking bird cage is open. And my birds are missing. And her cats are nowhere to be found. So now I'm freaking the fuck out. So then I go to check on the rest of my animals, like for part 3. Part 3 about why I will never let my sister pet sit for me ever again. So like I said, we walk into the kitchen and the bird cage is open and my birds are nowhere to be found and neither is her cat. So at that point, I run to check on all of my other animals. Thankfully, the snakes were fine, so I go to check on my tarantula and he's missing. So now I grabbed my sister's dogs, locked them in my room, and I went to go check on my hamsters. Yeah, she forgot to feed them the whole week because one of them ate the other one. So at this point, I'm having like a mental fucking breakdown, and I'm moving all the furniture in the living room and everything like that. And we lift up the couch, and we see her cat bolt out from under the couch. After that, I look under the couch and my bird is literally torn into pieces under the fucking couch. A few days later, she texted me and she was like, hey, like I feel so bad, like let me buy you a new bird and a new tarantula. And to this day, 2 years later, I still don't know what happened to them.
These are some of the worst places I decided to break up with my boyfriends. First place was the worst, was the car while he was driving on the expressway. I had to be the dumbest bitch in America to think it was a good idea to break up with my like mentally unstable ex-boyfriend while he was driving. The thing is, it was like I caught him cheating, whatever. I did a whole story time on that, right? So I caught his ass cheating. We're in the car and I'm like, okay, you know what? We're done. I'm fucking done here. I'm done with all of this. Like, we are broken up. Because that's just the proper way you end a 2-year relationship, apparently, in my book. Where you're like, what is she doing to her makeup? I'm Mary Phillipping my face right now. This motherfucker starts driving off the side of the road and he's like, we're not done. And I'm like, he's gonna kill me. He's gonna fucking kill me. He's like crying, like, you can't end it. Like, you can't end it, you know? And at this point, I'm like, Livy, you have 2 options. Either this man's gonna kill you, and like, I don't wanna go out like that. I don't wanna go out because my crazy boyfriend was just having a mental breakdown. Like, no. So I'm like, okay, babe, we're back together. Then, like, as soon as the car ride was over, I was like, we are fucking done and don't talk to me. I also had a similar experience with this same boyfriend, like, a couple months prior in the car trying to break up with him. And this time I was driving on the expressway and I was like, we're done. I should have fucked all your teammates while I had the chance, da-da-da, right? Like, it's a toxic relationship, mind your business. This man tried jumping out the window of my car on the expressway. So immediately I had to pull over and I was like, babe, we're back together. Because I was scared for my fucking life. This man was trying to jump out a window. I was so pissed. I was like, you really tried to jump out my fucking window? And he was like, you said you wanted to fuck my teammates. And I'm like, and I stand by it. So I will never break up with a man in a car again, okay? Also, there's nowhere to fucking go. So I don't know why I thought it was a good idea anyways. Next place, I will never break up with somebody. My apartment. I thought it was a great idea to sit down my boyfriend of 2 years and be like, you know what, babe? We should just go separate ways at my apartment. This man looked at me and said, no. And then he didn't fucking leave. Like, he was just like, no, like, that's just not happening. And I was like, fuck, like, what do I do? My friends were texting me like, how was the breakup? How was it? I'm like, it didn't really happen. Like, he won't leave my fucking apartment. So then, like, obviously, like, the dumb bitch that I was, I stayed with him for like a good month after that, and then I ended up breaking up with him in a car that wasn't moving, so he couldn't jump out of it. Go to part 2 to hear the places that I recommend that you break up with your boyfriend. Like, these are gonna be the best places for you to cut that motherfucker off. Here are some places that I recommend that you break up with your boyfriend, significant other, whoever the fuck. Number 1, Starbucks. Get yourself a venti latte on his card and then sit him down and do this in public, because he can't really make a scene when he's in public unless you're dating like a literal psychopath, and then he will. And then every time he drinks Starbucks, he'll never be able to forget you. Next one, if you like really value your relationship and you want to end it on like good note, like on a good terms or whatever, I recommend a park. Here's the thing, you're gonna feel like the main fucking character in a park breaking up, and it's just gonna like crying in a park, like hugging each other, kissing. It's gonna feel like you're in a movie scene. Like from here on out, this is how I'm ending every single situation in my life, is in a fucking park. I'm gonna feel like I'm the main character of a movie. And it'll be a day that you never forget. Like, I'm gonna break up with everybody in Central Park here on out. Next place, well, I guess it really isn't a place, but I actually did this summer with my lying, cheating ex, because he was in the south of France and I was in New York. Over the phone. I just think there's something super powerful about, like, here's the thing. You have to be in a certain kind of relationship to break up with someone over the phone. Like, this was, my ex cheated on me, so like I broke up with him over the phone, like a little text, and was like, fuck you, block you, never see you again. I've known people who have gotten broken up with over the phone, and like it ruins their fucking life because they were in like a healthy relationship, and then they're just like, fuck it, over the phone. It's like, that's inappropriate. But I just think there's something powerful being like, we're done. Like, babe, never call me again. And that's it. I don't know, something really powerful about it that I kind of just fucking love. And then you don't have to deal with seeing them cry and like you feel bad, regret your decision, take them back, then you date them for like another 3 years and you're like, why the fuck did I do that just because you saw them cry in person? Like, you're not going to see them cry over the phone if you hang up correctly. Next place would be the exact place you had your first date. Like, why not end it all where you started it? You know, why not bring it full circle? I think that's the perfect way to like truly end an era. Honestly, kind of romantic of you, not gonna lie. So those are just a couple places that I will be breaking up with all my future boyfriends. Try it out. Let me know how it works for you. I'm eager to hear. I am so exhausted today, and I have no idea why, but like I was on a walk this morning, could barely keep my fucking eyes open. Also, I'm officially done with Mandy, my nail lady. You're like, Livy, why? Look at these bitches. I'm missing nails, and it hasn't even been that long since I got them done, and it's like, I gotta cut her off, okay? I gotta get rid of the toxic relationship while I can, because this is just, I can't live a life like this. So if you know of any New York nail people, send them my way, please. So I go to Miami next month, and I'm gonna be there for like a week, because honestly, I have not seen the sun in fucking weeks in New York, like whatsoever. I know you guys hate when I say whatsoever, but bitch, I don't have a big vocabulary, okay? Like, I was never the bitch with a big vocabulary, so we're just gonna have to deal with the words that Livy does know. I'm going to Miami, and I'm so excited because I just need a Miami moment in my life. But I'm already starting my Miami plans. Like, I have a photo shoot booked for when I first get there and stuff like that. So I'm excited to just be a little menace in Miami. I've never said menace in my life, so I don't know where the fuck that came from. Let me know any other Miami plans if you have some for me. Also got a DM from a matchmaker yesterday, and she's like, I have a client that I think would be perfect for you. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. Because that shit excites me. My friends are like, are you really gonna do that? I'm like, yeah, can you fuck off? I am really gonna do that. Like, that's just so fun and cute. Like, why would I not? And it seems like a trustworthy company. But she said she had a match for me, so I want pics of this man. I did a photo shoot yesterday, and it was so fun. Go to my Instagram. I'm going to probably post those within, like, the week. I haven't even gotten them back yet. But all of New York did see my vagina. Like, I was flashing New York a little bit. I don't know why I made myself look like Casper the motherfucking ghost when I self-tanned yesterday. Like, what was the point of that? Also, I took my first cold shower today because, like, apparently cold showers are supposed to help with anxiety and disassociation. And I kind of loved it. I definitely have to, like, warn my roommate before I do it again because I was in the shower like, so she probably, like, thought I was, like, dying or something. I went TikTok live yesterday, and, like, I don't go live on TikTok because I say things that I regret, and then I'm like, what the fuck? You want to know what I said yesterday? I said the man Said the man that I most recently was talking to had a beautiful penis. Because like, why did I say that on TikTok Live with like so many people there? Like, why did I feel the need to fucking do that? That's so embarrassing. Win some, you lose some, you know, but he did have a beautiful penis. Here is the story time of how I was low-key wanted by the police. When I was like 20 years old, my friends and I found a passion for egging people. I like can't believe I'm fucking saying this. For some reason, the town I grew up in, everybody was egging each other. Like it was a thing, right? But that was like high school, middle school. I did this when I was fucking 20 years old. Like vandalism was just like such a fun thing we used to do in like my neighborhood growing up. I don't know what the fuck made me pick up that passion again when I was 20 years old, but something in me was like, bitch, you need to go out egging again. This quickly became one of my friends and I's favorite activity to do. Like the fucking adrenaline, I'm not recommending this for anybody, but the fucking adrenaline rush you get when you egg so successfully is just like top tier. So our weekends started looking like, it would be like 2 a.m. We'd go to Walmart, get a carton of eggs and just egg the fuck out of people that we didn't really like. There was this one weekend where things got very out of hand. We did our normal thing and we just got really passionate about the egging. And apparently somebody saw us. So whatever, the week goes by and there's talks of us, like the police knowing that it was us. We're on this group FaceTime and we're like, fuck the police. Like they're not gonna know it's us. Like they have better things to do than like catch us for egging, and like they'll never know it's us because none of us are gonna snitch. On this group FaceTime, we're like, fuck the police. They have nothing on us. Like fuck them. They have no proof. There's no proof. We end this group FaceTime confident as ever. Around 1 a.m. we get another group FaceTime and my one friend was like, the police were just at my house. I'm like, fucking A, oh my god. And then my other friend was like, yeah, they also just came and saw me too. I'm like, we're caught. Like, fuck it, we're going to prison. The police was making stops at like everybody's house. So I'm like, oh my god, they're gonna come get me at the dorm room. For some reason, I thought the police would literally drag me out of my dorm room by my hair and like put me in handcuffs and like arrest the fuck out of me. I ran up to my ex-boyfriend's dorm room and I'm like, babe, like I literally need to sleep with you. Like I'm wanted for the police right now. And he's like, for what? For what? And I'm not gonna fucking tell my ex-boyfriend that I'm wanted for egging because that's embarrassing because I'm an adult at this point. I'm like, can you just like shut the fuck up and like just be there for me? Like just shut up. At this point, the police are going to everyone's houses and they're like, they have all of our names, they have all of our information. And my friends, like, they're saying they saw us leave Walmart with like cartons of eggs. And I'm like, they're fucking lying. Just tell them we were doing a bake sale. Like tell them we're doing a bake sale. It's like 2 a.m. Why would we be doing a bake sale at 2 a.m? I don't fucking know, but I just was like, whatever, just like lie to them. What the police were doing was like so fucked up. They were, I know I committed a crime, but they would go to one of my friends' houses being like, oh, your other friend told us everything, trying to get us to confess. What about two? So the police are going to all of our houses saying each friend said something different of the story. But little did those fuckers know that we were on like a group FaceTime and we're like, okay, this is the story. And this whole time I was like, don't the police like have murders? Just like, don't they have something better to fucking do than just like try and get all these 20-year-old girls in trouble for like egging people who deserved it? We didn't deserve it. I think we were just bored. Now a week goes by and the police are like blowing my phone up because they didn't know where I lived. I don't know why they're dumb, but they keep calling me being like, Olivia, we need to talk to you into the station immediately, and I'm ghosting the fuck out of the police. Because if I talk, I'm just gonna ruin our entire, like, plan that we had set in place. But I had to tell my mom and sisters, like, what was happening, and my mom and sisters were like, are you fucking dumb? Like, who eggs people at 20 years old? Like, what is wrong with you guys? And I'm like, can you guys fucking not? Because, like, I'm prepared to go to prison at this point. Fully, like, they're taking me to prison. Like, I don't even look that good in orange. I actually do look amazing in orange. I'm like, how the fuck am I supposed to get my hair done and my nails done when I'm in fucking prison? Like, I am prepared to go to prison. Because that's how intense the cops made this seem. They're like, we need all of you. And it's like, fuck off. So we came to the conclusion that my one friend was just gonna take the blame because one person getting fined is a lot less than like a bunch. So she has a court date. I'm like, guys, should we get a lawyer? And they're like, no, we're fine. Like, we don't need a lawyer. But she has a court date with the people that we fully fucking egged. I'm like, we should get a lawyer. They're like, no, we're fine. Like, no one's gonna fucking, like, it's not that big of a deal, Livy. And I'm still like, I'm going to prison. Like, I'm going to fucking prison. Like, I don't want to even deal with this. So her court date comes around and she's like, you guys, they all have fucking lawyers. Like, everybody hired a lawyer except us. Honestly, like, go off to her because, like, I don't think I could have done it. I don't think I could have been in front of a judge and just, like, I just don't think I could have. Immediately, I would have started crying and they'd be like, what the fuck is wrong with her? Apparently, the judge was like, you did this by yourself. Like, you egged this many people by yourself. My friend at the time was like, yeah, I did it all by myself. And the judge was like, wait, why would you do that? And she's like, I just like felt like it. What the fuck do you even say in that kind of situation? So obviously we got slapped with like a huge fine. But like, is it an amount that I would pay again to do the same thing? Like, yeah, egging is so fucking fun. Fully kidding. It's actually not that fun at all. But that is the story time of how I was wanted by the police. And if the police are watching this was all alleged. All of this allegedly. I allegedly did this shit. Not recommending this, okay? Don't do it. I'm not telling you to do it.